wife has a new friend we'll call Carrie, for reasons of this story raising people's interest in her. It's better we don't use her real name. Carrie is a really sweet gal, very mild-mannered and always a smile on her face. I understood immediately why my wife became friends with her and how the friendship grew so fast. One day, while I was at work, my wife called and said that her and Carrie had lunch today. "That's great," I said. Then she said Carrie invited her to visit a psychic who she sees regularly. As I am not a believer, I laughed and said, "Should be entertaining, have fun." She said it's a psychic who's going to speak with the deceased. "Well, you can say dead people, it's cool. Just don't bring home any dead guys looking for a place to live." I laughed and told her to have fun. When I got home, my wife pulled in behind me. Normal greetings, how was your day, etc. Over dinner, she told me about the psychic. Only one spirit made contact, a young boy named Caden. His father, Jonathan, about a 50-year-old man who looked to be emotionally drained, timidly sat squeezing the edge of the table while swaying side to side in a nervous motion. He begged her to contact his son. He said he couldn't take it anymore. He had to know the truth. My wife said she got the sense that the man was afraid of his son. As the questions started with, "Are you okay?" and worked up to, "How did Mommy die?" Caden responded, "Mommy was mean." "How was she mean?" his father cautiously asked. "She wouldn't play with me. Mommy's health was poor, son. She often felt too sick to play." In an angry, deeper tone, Caden replied, "She will play with me whenever I want now." Childish giggles echoed throughout the room. Suddenly, the psychic trembled and said, "He's gone." "What did he mean?" she asked. "My wife and my son both died in a fire in our basement." The coroner said a fire spread over the carpet, engulfing the entire basement in flames. The fire burned so hot that very little of my wife could be identified. Next to my wife was a burnt couch. Caden was found lying on it untouched by the flames. His cause of death was undetermined. There wasn't a mark on him. He didn't even have smoke in his lungs. I never knew how the fire got started. I lost everything that day. I couldn't contain my laughter any longer. "That's just good entertainment," I told her. "You know, like wrestling." She shook her head in disgust and told me she truly felt the presence of that boy. I tried to contain my laughter as she stormed out of the room. I sat alone giggling, picturing this fake seance with some out-of-work actor and some kid learning how to con people with lies. Little Caden was probably off stage playing video games while he read his lines, or some adult who could sound like a kid. Little did I know at that time, things can be more real than you would ever want them to be. She said her mother had become very ill and she needed Carrie to come care for her and her father. Both were quite old and had many health problems. She didn't know how long she would be gone and asked if we could take care of her cat, Princess. Princess was a good cat, but we were dog people, so she couldn't stay with us. We opted for going to her house each day and spending some time with her. I hadn't played with any cats since I was a kid. We lived in the country and our barn was like the local motel for all the cats in the area. Cats would show up and hang around for a week or two, then we wouldn't see them for a month. Some wild, some friendly. I did enjoy their company while I did my chores. Point is, I was excited about taking care of Princess. Sounded like fun. The first few days, everything went great. On the third day, we got the storm of all storms. 40 miles in each direction, people were without power. Fallen trees riddled the streets and yards as far as the eyes could see. After the storm passed, I was happy to see the damage to our property was minimal. After a little cleanup, we decided to go check on Carrie's place. It was a slow drive with quite a few detours. As I pulled in, her home seemed to have dodged the storm. However, like all her neighbors, she was without power. I grabbed a flashlight from the glove box and headed in. Princess was not the kind of cat to meet you at the door. She was more of a hide-and-seek kind of gal. As we called her name while looking in the usual places, I noticed an echo coming from the basement. I paused and looked at my wife. At the same time, we both said, "Did you hear that?" "Princess," I said in a medium tone. Sure enough, someone in the basement repeated, "Princess," in a similar tone. "We're not alone," I said quietly. My wife grabbed her phone and started to call the police. "No," I said. "Maybe it's a neighbor or relative checking on the cat. Think positive." I opened the basement door. "Is anyone down there?" I asked. There was no response. In a louder, more aggressive voice, I said, "Who's there?" After a few seconds, I said, "Princess." From the darkness, someone responded, "Princess." Then a child's giggle came up the stairs and sent a shiver over my whole body. I shined my light down the staircase, but no one was there. Then a voice said, "Go." Just then, Princess leaped from the darkness onto the stairs. She stopped halfway up, looked back, and let out a hissing growl toward the darkness. Then she ran past me like she was on fire. "Who's there?" I demanded. "Quit screwing around." I shined my light side to side. Suddenly, from behind me, a voice said, "I don't like your light. Turn it off, now." The door at the top of the stairs slammed closed. I could hear Gail struggling to try and open it. "Who are you?" I said. "Why are you down here?" "I was playing with Princess," the childish voice responded. It sounded like a little boy, maybe 5 or 6 years old. I shined my light side to side across the basement, but no one was there. "You ruined playtime. Princess won't play anymore, and it's all your fault. I don't like you." I spun around, shining my light in every direction. The basement was empty, yet the voice seemed right next to me. Suddenly, the basement door flung open. My wife descended the stairs faster than I've ever seen her move. She reached the bottom with another flashlight. "I'm okay," I told her, "but something isn't right down here." We stood silent for what felt like forever. Then the voice said, "I saw you with my daddy. You looked sad." My wife frantically shined her light over the entire basement. Quietly, I asked, "What's your name? Why are you down here?" After a moment, the voice said, "I want to play." I stepped in front and said, "Of course, I'll play with you," while motioning for my wife to get upstairs. "No, I want to play with her. Will you play with me, Mommy?" We both froze in astonishment. I still couldn't believe this was real. I kept expecting someone to jump out and say it was all a joke. Constantly shining my light over the basement and seeing nothing, I finally caved and said, "Caden, is that you?" "I knew you play," he said. Then, in a more demanding tone, he said, "Because you know what will happen if you don't." Quickly reverting back to the child's voice, he said, Caden and Mommy love playing. No play here, we play at home. Just then, the power came back on. We both jumped at the instant brightening of the basement. You could see everything. We were alone, but we knew moments earlier we weren't. We both called Caden's name, but there was no response. We raced up the stairs and out to my truck. I thought about Princess and if she'd be okay. I realized she had escaped Caden once. I wasn't sure if we could say the same thing. What about Princess? That cat's on her own unless you want to go back in there, I said. Her look confirmed she had no interest in going back for the cat. In a matter of minutes, we were miles away from Carrie's house. Neither of us knew what to say. I didn't know whether to call a cop or a priest. Up to this point, I wasn't a believer in the supernatural, but that crushed all my disbeliefs. I called Carrie immediately when we got home. She seemed less than surprised. She actually laughed. She said Caden had been visiting her since the seance, and that spirits will often follow people home after seances. They'll only stay until they find someone else. My whole body froze. Is that what he meant when he said play at home? Had he chosen us? Then she said, I might want to go away for a few days and have someone come take care of your dog. She thanked me and quickly hung up. As I stared at the front door of our home, I felt sure my wife's new friend was waiting for us.